Okay, so for the belt gizmo, I used a couple screenshots like these ones and figured that the holster is gonna hide a lot of the details, so I didn't go into too much detail. So for those vacuum tube things at the top, I bought a package of AAA batteries and cut both ends off and doubled it up and stapled them together so that there were supposed to be 8 tubes or channels, clear tubes, but somehow I screwed up when I put everything together and ended up with 7 rather than 8. So when you do it, make sure you count out 8 rather than and staple them together that way. I went to my uncle's electronics store and got a scrap phone. They didn't have the Sanyo calculator kicking around at all. But I got some circuit boards out of the phone and used some of the buttons and the little black parts on the top of the battery pack or the vacuum tubes that I made. So that looks like the little black tops that are on there. So I used crazy glue to glue those things on, and I glued the battery pack thing that I made to the circuit board as well, and then used some of the existing screws that I removed from the phone to fasten that uh, plastic package onto the circuit board a little bit better. I got some colored glue sticks, hot glue sticks, as a Christmas gift, and that's how I made the little capacitors, those little orange round things that you see there. And I used Back to the Future mini pizza mold just to make the, like, originally it was supposed to be little pepperoni things, but that's what I used to make kind of identical little circles. But you can just, you know, dab some hot glue onto some parchment paper, wet your finger a bit, and then just make a little flat circle that way. You don't have to use special molds. Also, for all the red wires coming out of the clear tubes at the top, that was just a string of hot glue, red glue sticks as well. If you look in the upper left corner, you'll see some peel and stick magnets, little flat magnets that you can get at the dollar store. And that's what I used for the little black things that are underneath the capacitors. Here's a bunch more magnets mapped out in bigger rectangles, and I painted them with white nail polish. This spiral cable was from a old cigarette car charger, which would charge your phone. And that daughter board, again, was just some kind of scrap thing that I found in my uncle's basement. It didn't come with the phone, but you could use just whatever circuit board you can find, I guess. I used a clamp from an old cell phone holder that would clamp onto your pocket or whatever. And I cut that off with the Dremel, like everything that I didn't need, and glued it to the back of this daughter board, and also put some screws into there as well just to hold it in place. Now I gotta make a holster, so I positioned everything against the belt so I could figure out how big the holster needed to be. And I used this EVA foam. It was supposed to be a yoga mat from the dollar store. So I cut it into the shape that I wanted, and the strip as well, the belt part. And a trick that I learned online is that if you use, like, crumple up some tinfoil really good and then flatten it out, then you can use an iron to iron the tinfoil, and that'll put the little dimples and creases into the foam. That way it looks more textured, kind of like leather. Then I painted it all black and added some popsicle sticks to the back for reinforcement. That way it doesn't flex too much and the gizmo falls out from the bottom or something. Now, if you noticed in my earlier picture, when I glued the plastic battery pack thing onto the top of the circuit board, I left a gap, so I only glued half of that up there so that I could access the back and put some fairy lights in as the last step. So I made an insert, plastic insert to stick in afterwards just to keep the fairy lights in position. And I cut some of this lens stuff that's from an old TV, but you can just use like some plastic packaging. And I traced over top of the battery portion and marked 7 dots or 8 dots, and then used a hole punch to punch all those out, and then inserted the fairy lights like so. Now you're probably wondering if you can cut fairy lights or not. Well, you can, but then you end up wasting a great big long strand of fairy lights. So that's your call. Be prepared to do that. I glued the gizmo to some thick foam, like spongy foam, and cut a hole in the back of that and glued the battery pack for the fairy lights to the back of the circuit board, and that way it's fairly flush with the foam. So overall, it makes it kind of heavy, but it's kind of nice having that heavy feeling on your belt, so it feels important. Oh, also I used some black foam core and some red window tint with the fairy light and behind it for the little display at the right side there. So I weathered everything, but I might repaint it again because I think it looks better clean. I still have a MAR connector and some alligator clips to add to the daughter board. But there you go. That's how you make a gizmo.